My name is Elena Melusova. I come from Bratislava in Slovakia, where I was born and lived all my life. I arrived in France 3 years ago and worked as a Slavic teaching assistant at INALCO, a Parisian university. In Czechoslovakia, you couldn't buy Western newspapers, except for Humanité and Volksstimme, an Austrian paper, but it was communist. People used to buy it mainly because it had the Vienna TV listings. And since Bratislava was only 50 kilometers from Vienna, all Western Slovakia watched Austrian television and had the TV listings. The programs were for young people about modern art or modern music, and some thought this music was decadent and the authorities didn't like it. So they installed special equipment on the aerials, on the rooftops that would prevent us from watching these programs. It would jam the signal, and there would always be technical problems. We were trapped, and we were well aware of it. For example, we'd go to Divin, near the border, on the Danube and Morava rivers, very near Austria, where the river is very narrow, and a lot of people would try to swim across to get to the Austrian side. But we were barricaded in with a fence and barbed wire all along the border. Between the two fences, the 2-meter wide strip was covered in sand, which was spread out to reveal any footprints people left. There were also seats for soldiers who would use their rifles in the event of someone trying to get across. There were quite a lot of incidents where people tried to swim across the river and were shot dead. Today, there is a commemorative plaque with a list of the many people who tried to cross the border and flee to Austria or further away and never succeeded. I came to France after finishing my first year of university because I had won a prize for some sort of essay, a student prize. And the reward was not money, but a trip to France. The first time we came here, we were all very surprised because the difference between the two countries was huge. The architecture, the cities, the cleanliness, the shop windows, and of course, the possibility of buying anything, anytime. Why am I saying this? Because at home, not everything was available. You couldn't get toilet paper, cleaning products, I don't know, carrots, parsley. And suddenly, here in France, everything was available, and we were amazed. When I came to France, we did everything with the group and couldn't get away. There was always a supervisor in the group, making sure you didn't slink off. For example, once the classes were over, we were free in the evenings and could go for a walk. But upon returning, the supervisor would ask us who we'd been with, who we had met, and where we had been, etc. In 1986, when the Chernobyl plant exploded, I was in the hospital, on the verge of giving birth to my daughter. And my mother rang and said, "Stay where you are, you're fine there, don't leave." There was no TV, so I wasn't aware of what was going on. So I thought that maybe World War III had broken out. I was nervous and wanted to know what was going on. So my mother told me and advised me to stay there. But today, I realize it is unacceptable that the media didn't do their job. People thought it was better that way. For example, we would eat a salad, and we were well aware that we shouldn't because we were absorbing radiation. But they said, "Don't worry, it's only Russian radiation." Can you believe it? We were convinced the system couldn't change. It was clear to everyone. Then all of a sudden, Gorbachev came to Bratislava. He was the first. We listened to his speeches, his words, and thought, "My word, that's different. It would be nice if this continued." I realized that change had to begin in the Soviet Union, otherwise it would never happen. We were just a small number of people facing such a powerful force, with so many people that we couldn't wait for help from the West. We thought that it would never happen, that the system wouldn't change. So the first change came with Gorbachev's visit to Bratislava. We thought maybe. And then the first movement came from Prague, the capital city. Students came to Bratislava to explain the situation, and we witnessed the first signs of change. But we could not imagine that the wall would fall. We still had strong memories of 1968, when the tanks entered the city. I can clearly remember what happened. I was a 14-year-old school pupil, and the shock was immense, because I would never have thought that threat would come from the East, that the Soviets would threaten us with their rifles and tanks. Americans, yes. French, maybe, but Soviets, never. And the threat continued until the 90s. When the Velvet Revolution started, we didn't know how things would turn out.